I'm just so amazed how often people don't just communicate verbally about what's on their mind. Somebody's getting on their nerves. They're bothered about something. They're upset. Even when they're happy with somebody, they don't say anything. So many problems come down to communication, don't they? In fact, I don't know. It seems like everything comes down to communication. And these days, people talk into their phones, they text into their phones, or they use their phones to communicate, and they don't look at each other in the eye and just communicate. Just say something verbally with real words, human to human. I want to share a story with you and tie that into the lack of communication that I see from people these days. And I want to encourage you to build a more effective verbal communication culture at your company. All right, true story. I'm going to share this with you. I don't know what year this is, but we'll call it in the 90s somewhere. Early 90s, matter of fact. I think like 1991 or something like that. Whew, long time ago, right? Anyway, I was like a store manager. I had this assistant store manager that was like a manager in training that I was trying to get ready to be a store manager, and he was training underneath me. My bosses at the time, the regional managers and stuff, had sent this guy to my store so that I could train him to be a store manager. We'll call this guy Johnny. He was sent to me. He'd been there for a few days. I think they moved him from out of town or something. I can't remember. But anyway, he was sent to my location, Tulsa, Oklahoma. True story. He was sent there, and a couple of days in, I thought, man, this guy, he kind of funks, like body odor, right? Like he kind of stunk. I'm being serious. A couple of days, he's in my office, after like working in my office for an hour or two, I'd come into my office and, okay, what's going on here? First I thought, well, maybe he just had some gas. Didn't take a shower last night. I didn't know, right? If you've ever been around somebody that has real BO, at first you're kind of trying to figure it out. Anyway, a few days go by. I'm thinking, all right, something's wrong. Like there's something wrong. This guy definitely smells. Now my team, my associates that worked for me, they're starting to make complaints to me. Now nobody wants to be around him. Nobody sure as hell doesn't want to go in the office with him and shut the door and do anything for 5 minutes. So it's now it's becoming a problem. And I'm realizing, wow, like this is a problem. And I was young. I was probably, as a manager back then, I think I was, 24, 25 years old. So I had never experienced anything like that before. Didn't know what to do. And by the way, this assistant manager, or this person I'm talking about, Johnny, he was kind of a big guy, bigger than me, big, just like big overall dude, tall, big dude. And I'm like 5'11", and I weighed like 150 pounds at the time. So I was kind of worried about saying anything because I thought maybe he'd just whoop my ass. Anyway, so one day I get a visit from the regional manager. His name is Dave. And we go down to the food court at the mall, and we're talking. And I tell Dave, I say, Dave, Johnny, like I got this problem with Johnny. And Dave's like, oh yeah, what's the problem? So I proceed to tell Dave what the situation is. And so Dave, he's looking at me really intently and just listening. And he says, okay, so the kid funks. And I said, yeah. I said, yeah, he does. And Dave goes like this. This is what Dave says. He goes, okay, tell him. And I go, well, what do you mean? He goes, yeah. He goes, just straight up talk to him about it. Like, I'm just sitting there looking at Dave. I'm like, well, I can't just, you mean just tell him he stinks? He goes, yeah, tell him that he has body odor. Just talk to him. Like, what do you mean? Dave's looking at me like I got two heads. He goes, just tell him. And I just couldn't believe it. I'm looking at Dave like, well, can you do that? I don't know. Is that, Can you just tell somebody that? I don't know. Now, as I have mentioned on a few of my other episodes on the Riderflex podcast, back in the early 90s, I don't feel like human resources in general was as strict back then, or at least it wasn't with the company I worked for. So Dave never said, call human resources and talk to somebody in HR about how to properly relay this communication. Like there was none of that. there was none of that. There was none of that, which, by the way, in today's world, for most of you working for bigger companies, I would encourage you to just partner with HR because they're trained at all this stuff. But for those of you that may be in a smaller startup company situation, small to mid-sized company where you don't have anybody that's HR, or the person that handles payroll and HR is the accounting person, and there's no professional big-time HR department with a bunch of policies and handbooks and all the rest of it, you may be faced with this situation. Besides the point of the podcast, or the point of this episode, is communication. So anyway, there was no calling HR. Dave just said, just go down the store, talk to me about it. And I said, okay. So I go back to the store. I didn't do it that day. I don't think. I think Dave left, and it was the next day. This kid Johnny, he comes to the store that morning, and I said, yeah, it was the next day. And I said, Johnny, listen, I got to talk to you about something. I said, listen, you have an odor, like there's something wrong. Like you smell funny. I apologize. I don't want to hurt your feelings, but listen, people are complaining. Something's wrong. Here's the kicker. He kind of tears up, kind of slunches over in his chair. And he says, Steve, he said, I know. Yeah, that's the first thing he said. I know. He said, I know. He goes, listen, I ran into a bad situation financially. He said, when I got this job, I was somewhat homeless. He goes, I've been sleeping in my car, and I'm trying to go to the gym once a week and take a shower when I can get in there. He said, but I can't always get a shower, and I don't have any place to wash my clothes. Let that sink in. Okay, let that sink in for a minute. Here's a situation where I was just ready to get rid of this guy, right? He was thinking up my back room, my office. I don't want this guy around here. But meanwhile, there was a real problem there, and he knew about it. Now, maybe he should have said something to me ahead of time, but probably too embarrassed, right? I mean, that's a pretty tough thing to confess, that you're sleeping in your car and you can't wash your clothes. And so I said, oh man, I said, Johnny, wow, I said, I had no idea. I was kind of taken back by it. I didn't really know what to say, but the conversation basically went something like this, which was me saying, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. Is it fixable? Like when you do you always have this odor, or like when life is normal, you don't have this problem? And he goes, no, I don't have this problem. So what did we do? Guess what I did? I took him to the grocery store that night, bought him some laundry detergent. We went down to the laundromat. I gave him some cash out of my personal pocket, helped him get cleaned up, told my boss about it. We got him a hotel for a week so that he could get cleaned up and get caught up. And it improved. It improved. And he ended up going on to be a manager. What's the point of the podcast, or the point of the episode? What's the point, right? Communicate. Just talk to each other. It's amazing what happens if you'll just say the words, man. Just say the words. We hide behind email. We hide behind text messages. We complain to each other about somebody else. If you just talk to the person, just say what's on your mind, even when it's painful sometimes. Nobody wants to, have confrontation. Everybody's afraid they're going to hurt everybody's feelings sometimes. Just talk. Just say the words. Be amazed at what you can solve if you just have a real live human-to-human conversation. And there is your Riderflex tip of the day.